Hello and welcome to another episode of Extra Time. Here we are, two of us once again. We just can't get the three of us together, but that's okay. Adam Pellerin, Sophia Yerkstovich. You and Jemai last week, me and you this week. You're the only constant on this show so far, Soph.
No, I missed an episode. Remember when I was traveling to Florida to cover Game 5 between the Bruins and Panthers? I missed. Yes, it was just you two getting up to your whatever. To be honest with you, I didn't watch it. I'm sorry. I don't know what you even talked
Yeah,
about.
that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, right. Yeah, I really feel the teamwork.
I missed it.
That's all right.
You know what?
It
would make me feel too. It would make me feel too left out. So that's why. How about that for an answer?
All right, fair enough. You too much FOMO to consider there, but yeah. All right, so we have all missed at least one of these podcasts. So we like it when the three of us are together because we sort of go back and forth and it's fun. But I enjoy doing it with either you or Jemai. So it's all good. We're good. We're gonna have fun today. That's what we're gonna
out of all three, only one of us has been brutally late. Not me, not you.
Yeah, that's
Jemai.
true. Yeah. He shall. Oh, I was going to say he shall remain nameless, but no, it's pretty obvious who we're talking about. Anyway.
And wait.
Yes.
Sorry. Already interrupting. You're the host this week. I'm already taking over. I got to control myself. But the intro this week, way cleaner for fans. So we have a 10-second countdown before we come live. And Jemai was like making all this noise in the 10-second countdown. And right when it hit 1 and I started the intro, he dropped something huge and it made a big noise. We went with it. I played with it. But that guy, man, I need to talk to him. Like he needs a little one of these. So I imagine today's is going to go a lot cleaner. Yeah. Adjustment. Exactly.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I did watch last week's episode, which we'll get to in a second. But I first should point out this is kind of big, right? So we've been talking about how you can see us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch, but now we're available on Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music as well. I mean, that's huge. We are big time now. We are branching out this brand of ours, so it's pretty cool. I think it's cool. It is cool though. I will say, like, I have been going to YouTube and other platforms, but the fact that we can just now, go to Apple or Spotify or whatever, and I can type that in and listen. I think it's pretty cool.
Maybe I'll listen to it on my very long drive home from Canada, whenever that is in the next week or so, 8 or 9 hours. Now, instead of putting it on YouTube, which I wouldn't do in the car, now I can listen on Spotify. So that's what I'll be doing. There you go.
Yeah, that's pretty good. So, all right. So you just mentioned you are in Canada. You're back home in Toronto. By the way, I should set the table as a good host would, talk about some of the things that are on tap in our discussion today.
Yeah.
We'll get to some of the things that you guys talked about last week because I think I want to add to that discussion as well. So we'll get to that. We'll get to how our weeks went. I spent some time with the Savannah Bananas when they were at Fenway, which was pretty cool. And I think one of the things we also wanted to talk about was our travel accommodations with the teams and flying on charter flights versus commercial flights. Some interesting differences, at least between the two modes of transportation. But before we get to all that, I mentioned you're in Toronto, you're back home. When did you get there? What have you been up to? How long are you going to be there? And how's the weather?
The weather's not good. It was good when I got here, but like for one day. And since then it's been kind of windy, rainy, and cold, which stinks because I was just telling you, I'm a weather freak. Like I love the sun. I have a love-hate relationship with the sun. I love it because it gets me outside. It gets me active. I'm still active in the cooler / rainier weather. It's just not as fun or you're not as motivated. The hate relationship with the sun comes, I get nothing done. So if I have 10 things to do and it's sunny, I have major anxiety. I need to work through this somehow. Get me a shaman, get me a therapist or something with this because I can't be inside. Like I'm angry, I'm frustrated. If it's warm and sunny and I have like chores, laundry, even cooking dinner, I'm freaking out. I'm like, I should be outside. I should be outside. So I'll take my laptop to find in a park and try to get Wi-Fi on my phone. I obviously can't do my laundry when I'm in a park, but the love hate comes from I get nothing done, but then I spend all this time outside, which is lovely. So the rain's been nice because I've been catching up on things I need to do, seeing people, restaurants, friends, this and that, my nieces. It's been a lovely trip. I just want the sun to come out because I'm planning to visit one of the lakes, Canada, just like America, of course, but Canada and Ontario, a ton of lakes. Oh, who's that? Who
Oh,
is
do you
that?
hear that? Do you hear that?
Yes, yes,
That is our dog Mabel, who I think might have spotted a
Mabel.
bird that just had the audacity to fly into our backyard. So you may hear Mabel from time to time barking. So just to give you a little uh, idea of what I'm working with, not to sort of hijack your story
No, go
about being
ahead.
back
It's
home,
the show.
but since we heard the bark, I am doing the podcast obviously from my house. My wife is 100% remote in her job. My daughter is at school right now, so she's out of the house. Mabel is almost one. She requires a lot of exercise. So every morning I put Millie on the bus, my daughter, and then we take her for like a 2 mile walk, and she's good for a little bit. And then after this podcast, I'm going to take her in the backyard. We have a fenced in backyard, and she's going to run around. She'll get tired again. But in that sort of little window where she's not exercising, she can get a little barky. So you may hear Mabel say hi from time to time, just so you know who that is. So there you go.
I mean, I'm not putting you on the spot right now, but if at any point in the show she comes close to you, make her hop up, bring her on. I'd love to see her.
Yeah, so I will do that. We're on the third. I'm on the third floor right now. I actually have a 3 level house. This is sort of
Yeah.
the in the future, Soph, this is going to be like a great entertaining space. We've kind of used it as that, but for now and for a little while longer, this will be my daughter's like play space. This has been like
Right.
so you can't even imagine. This is I set this up for our podcast, but you can't even imagine what it looks like in the background. Like there's a Barbie dream house I'm looking at. There's a huge giraffe.
Oh,
There's LOL dolls. I don't even know if you know what those are. There's some squishamallows.
no.
Like I am seriously like I would turn it around to give you an idea, but it's actually horrific. So I don't want to do that. But with that said, Mabel has this sort of she's still unsure about the third floor. She comes
Okay,
up here
okay.
from time to time, and I doubt we will see her anytime soon until she builds up some confidence getting up those stairs.
Okay, fair, fair. Maybe we'll put a picture of her in a future episode. I would love to have a dog, but as a solo person in Boston, very hard to have that responsibility. Plus, which we'll talk about later, the travel, not that
Yeah.
easy when you're traveling to find care for the dog, not fair. Game days can be 12, 14-hour days if you're going to morning skate and the game. So not fair, but it's my dream. I fostered for a little bit, but this was when COVID was still going on. So it was easier because a lot of things were remote. And I had a roommate at the time. So it was between the two of us. Still a lot of responsibility, which I've had dogs before. I knew that, but not for a long time. I always had dogs growing up with my parents, with my siblings. So not as a adult responsible for all the things I'm responsible for. And I'm like, damn, you forget if you want to be a good owner and if you have a big dog that needs exercise, this is definitely a full-time gig. But with the roommate and like COVID regulations and not, going out as much, it was a lot easier. Loved it. Hope to be able to do that again one day. But with Bruins travel and with Red Sox travel that you do, I think you do. You don't travel that much for
Yeah,
the Red
I don't.
Sox, but you have.
I used to. Yeah, I used to do some back in the day. It was when we were transitioning sideline reporters, and there was actually it was me, Gary Streisky, and El Duncan, both of which are at
Yeah.
ESPN now. Both of those guys, we love them, and it was a fun couple of years doing that. And that was actually my first experience with travel. We might as well. I mean, I don't know. We might, since we're talking about travel. I mean, do we want to get into that now? I was going to talk about our week and Savannah Bananas. I mean, I guess we can get to that later.
We
But
can.
let's do the
We
travel
can
thing.
talk about travel. Okay, let's do travel.
Yeah.
Take it away.
All right. So, like I said, I've worked in TV for 20 years. Actually, the anniversary
Yeah.
of my first appearance on air is in August. It's August 5th. 2004 was when I made my on-air debut in Portland, Maine as a weekend sports anchor reporter. So I've been doing this for 2 decades and obviously have covered the teams over the years a lot and during playoff runs. And, when you work in local news, you don't travel with the team. You don't, not only do you not travel with the team, obviously, but you don't travel to cover the games, right? Unless
Right.
they get into the
It's a
postseason. That's
big,
when you
yeah.
start to see, right? Like all of the local news outlets are sort of jump on board, expand their coverage of whichever team. And that's when you'll travel. So I had covered the Bruins, Red Sox, Celtics, and Patriots in that capacity where I would, all right, they're in the playoffs or, they're in the championship and we're going to travel, book a commercial flight, book a hotel, do all that stuff. So that was my experience traveling, covering sports. Get to NESN,
Mm-hmm.
start doing the Red Sox sideline gig, and they're like, oh, yeah, we travel with the team. So we're not flying commercial. They used to fly commercial back in the day. All the way back in the day, teams used to fly commercial, but now they
Yeah.
charter flights. And so charter flights, basically private flights, and it's just the team personnel and a couple of members of the media, right? And that includes NESN. And in the case of the Red Sox, it's WEEI. And in the case of the Bruins, it's Sports Hub, and it's Bob Beers and Judd Surratt with the Bruins, and obviously, Jack and Brick, and either you or me or Razor at times, a photographer, and our director Rose. And there are times where the producers, some extra people travel. Brian Zaccello, I want to make sure I say his name because he's probably listening. Make sure you
Yeah.
include me. P-Dub will have a scorebug operator when we go to trips in Canada for some technical reasons I won't get into right now. But anyway, it's quite an experience, and I want to get your take on flying with the team, your first experience flying with the team, what that was like, and everything that goes along with it. You can take it whatever direction you want to go.
Yeah, I mean, I'd never traveled either. Well, I worked for the rights holder in Canada when I worked at Sportsnet before I came to NESN, and then I worked at CBC, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. And so we used to travel for big events like the All-Star Game with Sportsnet. We had behind the scenes access. When you're the rights holder, you have all the access, which was really fun, really cool, like being on the bench, first access to everything because you paid for it as the rights holder. But still, we never traveled with a team because we didn't cover a particular team. We covered the entire NHL. So all economy, not first class, like people might think, definitely not. And then I actually went to Korea in July of 2019. I moved to Boston in August of 2019, so a month later. But my final contract with the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, I went to Korea for a month to cover the World Championships of Swimming and Diving in Gwangju, Korea for FINA. And that was a crazy experience. Also not first class. So as you can imagine, I think we took 2 flights. From Toronto to Seoul, which was direct, which was nice. And then Seoul to Gwangju. And that first flight, I can't remember, but somewhere in the 12 to 14 to 15 hour range. Middle seat, very uncomfortable for 12 hours. Yeah, middle seat. I mean, but yeah, CBC was definitely not paying first class government. It's run, or it's partly funded by the Canadian government. So you can check all that. They wouldn't be putting the taxes to us flying first class to cover the World Championships. But such a cool experience. But yeah, I mean, basically what I'm trying to say is I've traveled economy so many times to cover the snowboarding championships in Utah, all this kind of stuff. And that's just what you're used to, unless you were born into a lot of money, which I was not. I still to this day have never flown first class on a plane, but the chartered experience feels like first class for sure. I think my favorite thing about chartering a plane, and it feels like first class because the seats are bigger, they're more comfortable, you can recline way further. You're not in these pods where you can sleep like you see a lot, but so none of that, but just bigger seats, more space, and two to an aisle. So there's no middle seat business. lots of leg room, which is great. But I think my favorite part is just not stressing about security. You get checked, they check your bags, you get your passport checked, all that kind of stuff. But you're never worried about, is the security line going to be an hour? Is it going to be, 15 minutes and like rushing to get there early, which is my biggest source of anxiety. It's just, have I given myself enough time? Because you have to factor in, like, when you're traveling anywhere, traffic, check-in lines, because putting your bag through, then airport security, and you always give yourself so much time that, or if you're like me, you've been late before, but you usually try to give yourself so much time that you end up just like twiddling your thumbs at the airport. So I love that part. You pull up to Hanscom, where they fly out of. You park your car. We used to get valeted, Adam, which was really cool. Before COVID, we would drive our cars to the plane, on the tarmac, and they would take them and park them for you. And then when we landed you guys probably assume this, maybe you don't know this, but after a road trip, it's very rare that unless you're on the West Coast flying out the next morning, you're getting home as soon as possible. If you're in Washington or Toronto or Philadelphia or whatever, even Chicago, you're flying out the next morning. That night. So you'd be landing at 2, 3 a.m., depending on the time, as you know. But our cars, Adam, in the dead of winter, the hockey season, used to be turned on and warm and ready for us in the parking. Yes, see your face? In the parking lot. So the players get off the plane first, staff after that, and then media last. We would go and your car would be warm and ready to go. And you would basically like walk off the flight and your car would be right there. And they would also shovel, if there was snow, they would shovel it off for you. Whereas, I know, so like, oh, now I'm sounding so privileged because we don't get that anymore. You got to walk all the way to the parking lot.
Oh, I know. It's so tough.
I know. Anyway, Adam, I know I've been rambling for 20 minutes about the valet and everything, which was so cool. But now that we don't have that, sounding so privileged, there is a funny story that came out of that because, like I said, they used to clean our cars for us. And then that all changed in COVID. But we were walking home at, I don't know, we're walking to our cars at 2, 3 in the morning, dark, and did not expect this random snowfall. I think it was early in the season that came, November, whatever. And so it was a bunch of snow that was dumped on our cars and ice. It was like freezing rain. So really, really, really icy. If you didn't have a snow scraper in your car, you would have been stuck like trying to melt it off, which a couple players were doing. I, as a true Canadian, know you never take that out of your car. It's not seasonal for me. That stays in the trunk. I don't care if there's other luggage that needs to go in there. That baby's staying in the trunk. So I had it. And I parked pretty close to Brad Marchand, who I noticed when I got to my car was like, he was there first. The players get off the plane first, was like scraping the ice with his fingernail or a credit card or whatever he was trying to do. And it was not going well. So I went into my trunk, and as I opened it, I chirped him like, man, you're not even Canadian anymore. What's wrong with you? Gave him a hard time, but gave him the scraper. And he was like, you go first. And I said, no, like, dude, like, you're, alternate captain of the team. You got to go. It's all good. I'll warm up my car, scrape your car. So he scraped his car. And then as a polite gentleman, as a favor to me, he's like, I'll get your windshields for you. You save my butt. And I was like, it's okay. Let me do it myself. We kind of had this little fight in the parking lot. He's like, I'll do it. Just get in your car, get warm, and let me do it. So as Bob Beers used to play for the Bruins, a lot different, in a different era where they didn't have the luxuries as much as the players do now. He walks off the plane and sees me warm in my car, and Brad Marchand, future captain of the Bruins, just scraping the car off for me. And I'm sitting there looking all entitled. And Beers, he's like, are you serious, Soph? Like in front of Brad and me, lightly chirping me. But he's like, come on, like you forget your scraper and you're making one of the players do it. And I was like, wait a minute. I just saved this guy's ass. I had the scraper in my car. He's doing me a favor. Whatever. Brad defended me, but it was a bad look. Like me just sitting in my car entitled while, one of the players is scraping my windshield for me. But I actually, had the scraper. So now without the luxury of getting valeted, which you've never got to experience, this is what us common folk have to do. We have to scrape our cars just like everyone else.
I'm shocked you got chirped. I mean, that never happens, right? No, nobody ever gets chirped.
Yeah, right.
Uh, but that's funny. Yeah, that is funny. Well, yeah, I can't believe. Wow, you guys got ballet. That's pretty cool. I
Yeah,
mean,
it was lovely.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It is. Yeah, because again, I mean, again, like not complaining, but the walk from the plane to the car in the middle of winter can be a little bit chilly. At least hey, the benefit of the commercial flight, right, is that you get into the airport, you're nice and warm, right? So you have that
Yeah.
sort of going for you, commercial versus the charter. But yeah, no, it is nice. I wanted to actually get your thoughts on this because it is interesting dynamic, right? Because we are flying with the teams, but we're not a part of the team, right? So I think we're part of this sort of media group, and again, like I'll just preface this by saying it's been a great experience. I've traveled with them for the last 2 years, part time. The year before this past season, and then most of the games this year. It's been a great travel experience. You do feel like you're a part of the group, but at the same time, you're not. You're covering the team. So there are times where the team is playing well. There are teams where they're not playing well. There are times when they're not playing well. And I sort of wonder, like, what's it like for you? For me, it's you try to act accordingly, right? You try to. It's like, all right, I just came off a road trip where they lost 2 out of 3, for instance, and the mood on the plane, sometimes can be a little less jovial than other times. Sometimes it can be great, if you have a good trip. But what is that experience like, for you?
Yeah, I mean, you're like you said, we're not part of the team. Definitely try to like stay not away. They're lovely players and lovely staff, and I feel so lucky to be, working for this particular team. Story for another day, but like I've covered a lot of teams, and the Bruins really are what, the stereotype is. Like the culture is great, the leadership is great, and the best part is, and I've heard other reporters talk about their experiences with other teams, not going to mention them, but sometimes they're not that great to the report, or they treat you like lesser than. And hockey players are the sweetest, kindest, most humble athletes I've personally ever worked with. So that's not to say anything about the culture in general. I find them just amazing, humble, accommodating. They have time for your questions, people. But the Bruins, I just think, are exceptionally kind, nice, and humble in that sense. And again, we know when the culture started, but I think Chara was a big advocate of like everyone on this plane or everyone in our room. I know they don't like some of the media, but everyone on this plane at least, and the staff at Warrior, whether they're mopping the hallways or whatever, is part of the team, and you treat them with respect. And I love that. So that being said, even though it can be a little icy sometimes when it's a big loss, or they blow a lead and then you have to take the flight right away, they're always kind and respectful. But yeah, I try to stay out of the way in the sense where
Yeah.
we get on first. So one of the rules is that the players have a bus time and they have a plane time, and they have to hit that time, whereas the media, we're expected to be around an hour if it's the plane time earlier, and at least 15 to 20 minutes earlier on the bus, because we never want to be the reason
Oh.
why we're taking off late or going late. Which I have a story for you there. I messed up once and was late, so that's a whole other story.
Oh.
Ooh,
Okay.
yeah. So that was probably one of the most painful experiences of my life. Not really. I've been through like, breakups and there's family stuff going on. But I mean, in terms of pride and embarrassment, that was top 3 in my life where I was like, God help me. Like, I never want to do this again.
I've had
But
nightmares
with
about being late, by the
being
way.
late,
I've had like on that when traveling with the team, you're right.
yeah.
Like you don't want to be late. I mean, I go down, like I check out of my hotel, right? So like if there's a, if it's a situation where the bus is leaving, you talked about the next day, right? So then, and again, not to interrupt you, but like sometimes if we're on a West Coast trip, we'll leave the next day. We did that a couple of times this year, right? And so, all right, so if the bus is at 10 a.m., I'm checking out, Soph, at like 8:30. Like I'm getting down at
Oh my God.
8:30. I'm
Not
making
me.
sure
I'm
everything.
like, I'm brushing my teeth at 8:30, being like, la la la. I still have a
No,
long time.
man. Like, no, 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 no. I am checking out at 8:30 because I don't want there to be any issues at the counter checking out, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
you can encounter either a line or you can encounter an issue with a computer or whatever. I don't want to run into that problem. I want everything to go smoothly, and I want to put my luggage on the bus and I want it there. And I'll get on the bus like a half hour before it leaves just to get in my seat, because that's the thing that like I'm I'm deathly afraid of is being the reason. Like I don't want to be the reason. Yeah, it's not going to be me. It's not going to be me.
Do
That's my
you
mentality. So
Do you have being late trauma in your life? Like, oh wait, we talked about this. Yes, you do. You were late for your audition at NESN. And since
yeah,
then, I imagine you're always someone who's on time. But yes, you do. Okay. I just perpetually live my life in a state of anxiety and rushing because I just do. Even though I have like 2 hours to leave my hotel room or the house, for some reason I'm like, oh, maybe I'll fluff this pillow and maybe I'll fold this towel that doesn't need to be folded. And then I'm like, I have to go. And then I'm screaming down the highway like Cruella DeVille, you know that meme where she's
yes.
yes, that's me. It's like I don't know why. I had 3 hours to leave, but that's just how I live my life. With the Bruins though, no, that and with television, I'm never late to the Garden or don't stress out my teammates being late and not showing up. I mean, more in like day-to-day personal appointments like dentists or whatever. With the Bruins, I take that very, 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 very seriously because, like you said, it is a privilege. It's an honor. Like the organization could say, and rightfully so, you're not allowed on the plane anymore. Like we're not chartering you guys, cover us, but you're flying commercial. Some teams do that, so it is a very big privilege for us to be there. That is why we can't be loud or obnoxious on the plane. We have to be kind to the staff, which you should be if you're a decent human being anyway.
Yeah.
You're not a player. You're not supposed to act like one, and you're supposed to be early and on time to show that, yeah, you're never going to be a reason why their scheduling is behind. But the one time, so I wasn't late technically, but as I said, if you're not on the bus about 15 to 20 minutes earlier than the players. So let's say their bus leaves at noon. This happened in New York once when we were flying somewhere the next day. We were supposed to be on the bus at noon. And I was downstairs by 11:30 and I checked out. Like you said, I've had that panic where you're at the hotel counter and all of a sudden there's like, I don't know, like a school or something checking in and you're in line for like 20 minutes and it's so stressful. So you got to get there early. But I checked out and this was about a month or two into my job at NESN. So I'm still brand spanking new. And Brian Zachello, our producer, has made the rules very clear to me. But I guess they slipped my mind that day. I thought if I'm on by 12, I'm good. Like if I'm on at 12. So I was actually on the phone outside the bus, but just pacing up and down the street where the bus was waiting from the hotel. My luggage was on. I was on the phone and I kind of was like a block up where I could still see it. And around 11:54, I looked at the time. I was like, yeah, I should probably get on the bus. And I got on at like 11:56, but it was scheduled to leave for 12. So in my mind, I'm like, I'm on time. And I got on and everybody was on. Like Don Sweeney was on, Cam Neely was on, Patrice Bergeron was on, the captain at the time. And I wasn't. And I immediately, when I got in, like I can see everyone kind of look at me and it was quiet. And I about almost threw up. Like it hit me. Like I wanted to run away, but that would have made the bus even more late. So I couldn't do that. But I kind of sat and like went into my seat like this. And Brian Zachello looked at me, didn't say anything. And then when we got off the bus to get to the plane, all he said to me, so for those people listening, Brian Zachello, our producer, is the most jolly, happy, funny, silly, kind producer you could ever have. He's so much fun. He's such a goof. I have never seen him angry. I've never seen him tired, even though that man doesn't sleep. Like he's just Mr. Good Mood all the time. And he's never scolded me. And he looked at me and all he said, and he pointed, he said, is be better in a very stern tone. And then he walked away and I was like, ugh. Like I felt like I couldn't sleep for like a week. And he was right. Like, how could I have been chatting on the phone, the last person on the bus? Like, oh, it was so embarrassing and makes me sick talking about it. But maybe this is good
Oh
healing.
man, yeah, that's no
You know that
bueno,
feeling
Soph.
when you're
That's
in
no
trouble?
bueno.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
man.
yeah.
I think a lot of it too, like, you mentioned my experience at NESN, the audition being late and that having an impact, but that was a rare occurrence. I think it like stems from sports, growing up and playing in college and having this in my head that on time is early, and
Yeah.
if you're not early, I remember, having to be, punished for being late and running, and having to run. It's just like,
Mhm.
man, I don't want that to happen, and I kind of still have that sort of emotional scarring from those experiences, being late and having to run. It's like, oh man. But the other thing too,
Awful.
we mentioned, traveling the next day and having, a certain bus time and then a flight time and then getting, and leaving for, a road trip. But how about after the game where you're gathering sound from the room, right? And you're getting player interviews, and then you're hitting the road right afterwards. That's an interesting experience, and that you got to give a shout out to our photogs, right? Because
Oh yeah.
Soph, how hard they work, A, and B, how much of a scramble it is for them after the game. Because, so just to give people an idea, so we have our photographers. There are ENG photographers, right? Handheld camera. They get our interviews. They do all of these things, right? And they also on the road will operate a game camera. And so the game cameras are fixed cameras that are in all the different locations within the arena, which are cameras that show the broadcast. So on the road, those photographers will handle their pregame responsibilities, and then they'll go up to their camera position. And then after the game, they have to fight through the crowds, to get down to the room to get the interviews. So that's an adventure in and of itself. They also, after we get like 1-2 interviews tops, right, depending on how quickly the players come out and are available to the media, they have to take their gear, pack it up, bring all the gear to an equipment truck, and it needs to be loaded on by a certain time because that equipment truck
Yeah.
is going to the airport. It's being loaded onto the plane, and they're working their butts off to try and get it done. And that, I think, is something that people definitely don't see that, but so we see that, and it's crazy how hard they got to bust their butts to get that equipment on the plane.
Yeah, because like even as you were talking for a quick second, I was like, don't they leave a minute or two early? But no, of course not. They're shooting the game for NESN. So whatever you guys are watching on NESN, there's several camera people, but one of them is our photog, and they're shooting the game. So they're not allowed to log off, so to speak, until the final buzzer. And so when the final buzzer hits, as you guys can imagine, usually the crowds are getting up out of their seats 10 seconds before or whatever, depending how tight it is. And so, like you said, as soon as the buzzer hits, the crowds in the elevators, go wild, and you're pushing through these crowds. And it's not like they have, personal security guard that like lets them through. They've got to fight these crowds. And depending on how good or bad the game was for the Bruins, so if it was a really bad loss, usually the team just wants to get the heck out of there as fast as possible. So the room might open up right away. And because, they said what they said in the locker room, everyone's pissed off, and they don't, they're not like sitting around chit chatting. So they're ready to go. Like you said, that photog's got to make it so we don't miss. Jim Montgomery does his one-on-one with our guys with Brick. But like sometimes we like to get coach in the scrums because he is asked different questions, and then they don't miss the room. So yeah, it's a hustle for them. But absolutely, I would say the Bruins make 3 to 5. 5 is a lot, but depending on
Five's
the
a
game,
lot.
3 to 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe 4, 3 to 4. But I've seen 4 for sure on the road available. 3 to
Yeah, I've
4
seen 4.
players.
I would say the 5 would probably be more home than it would be road more often than not,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. 3 to 4 players, let's say then available. And like you said, we don't always get to get the whole sound because
Right.
if that equipment doesn't make it on the truck, then it might not be making it. It's just a huge pain in the ass for the Bruin staff, which again, we don't want to be as NESN. We
No.
never want to give them more work. So it's a huge pain in the butt then to get it on the plane. And then it's like, oh, NESN's cameras, causing these issues.
Right.
So it is a must finish. And I usually wear heels at the game. I have ran in heels.
Same.
So, too many. Oh, you do too. Yeah. Just to get that height,
I was wondering if you were going
too
to pick
many
that up.
times.
By the way, yeah, that's a whole nother story, right? Those guys on skates. I did an interview with Linus, and I was on tiptoes the entire time because I'm like, this is ridiculous. Like, I have to get a little bit more height here. But anyway.
Wait, did you do part-time Bruins reporting with Chara or no?
No, I've interviewed him when he's on
crazy.
flat feet, and it's still ridiculous. It's still ridiculous. I actually posted a meme that I was pretty proud of that said, like, last year during the record-setting season, I interviewed him for something. It might have been right before he ran the Boston Marathon for the first time. And the Bruins were having their record-setting season. And I'm like, interviewing him, right? And so I put the meme. I was like, the Bruins, right? Like on top of like his like part of the photograph, and then the rest of the league. It was me down there, like the Bruins versus the rest of the league. That's kind of it was kind of funny. But anyway.
No, he was on skates. He was a monster to interview, for sure. I'm trying to think if I've ever used it like an Apple box, but no. But anyway, back to the story, like the amount of times, and I'm sure you help the photogs too, because they have so much gear. Like it's not just one little camera. The camera's not little anyway. It's tripod. It's this. It's microphone stuff. And so they usually have two big luggages and then a bag with the tripod. The amount of times I've ran it down and we barely, but I'm saying by like seconds, make the equipment truck. But it's kind of fun. Like I said, I like to live my life in a perpetual state of anxiety, and that helps. That's one of them for sure.
a little bit of that is a good thing because it gets the juices flowing and you have the adrenaline rush and all that stuff. So that's pretty good. Anything else you want to add about the travel? Because I did tease a couple of things that we would get to off the top of the show, and we're winding down pretty quickly. Anything else that stands out to you?
Yeah, no, I really want to hear about the Savannah Bananas, so I won't. We can save some more travel details for another show. We'll talk about the food on a later day because the food's good.
Okay, yeah, we'll get Jemai in on that conversation as well.
Yeah, we do some comparables too. Yeah.
Yep, no question.
Yeah, exactly.
No question. All right, so Savannah Bananas at Fenway Park. I shot an episode of NESN Clubhouse this past weekend. We did it last year in Hartford. So the Savannah Bananas are on a world tour. I'm pretty sure everybody knows the story by now. The owner, Jesse Cole, he's a local guy. He was on the 310 to Left podcast with TC and Alex Beer recently. I think everybody knows that, there was a minor league baseball team that was affiliated with the Mets, I believe, in Savannah, Georgia. They weren't drawing any crowds. He decided to do something different. The Bananas were born, and now they've become this phenomenon. And so this year they're on a world tour. They're getting in front of 1 million fans, which is just crazy. And that includes 6 major league ballparks, including Fenway Park. And so last year we were at the Hartford Yard Goats Stadium where we shot an episode of NESN Clubhouse. So we did the same thing this year. And part of that is like the Bananas have all of these choreographed routines. Like they do something different in front of the crowd every single venue, right? So it's not the same sort of rinse and repeat routine. They take some of the things that they've done in other venues and use it more than once, but a lot of the stuff that you're seeing is brand new. You're seeing it for the first time. And so we had the idea last year. It's just like, you know what? Like, let's do a dance routine, right? So last year it was Sophia, who was the host, co-host in NESN Clubhouse, and myself. And we did something with the choreographer, Maceo, who is awesome. He's done stuff with Dancing with the Stars. Like, the dude's legit. So this year we did another dance routine, me and Jaden and Maceo. And I got to tell you, Soph, like, I never feel as awkward as I do when when I'm dancing. Like, I mean, I try.
You you're crushing it. You don't look awkward at all. You look.
I mean, it's cringe right now for me. I mean, look at that hop, and then like I realize I got to make the full turn and pick up some ground. Oh man, but
You're
it's fun.
selling it.
It
You are
is.
selling it. You're selling it, dude. It's
Yeah.
awesome.
So for the kid show, it's fun. Like that's another thing. Like talk about the number of different roles that I've had, right? My career, like anchor, reporter, host, team reporter, like, all the stuff. I've done Irish curling at Fenway Park. I
Whoa.
hosted, yeah, like crazy, like all these different things. And then a couple of years ago, I started doing this NESN Clubhouse show, working with kids and stuff, and that was unique because I had never worked with kids before. And it's, I'm a dad now, so I've been a dad for a while, a 9-year-old daughter. But I don't think it's something that I could have done, maybe not as
Before?
well, but like, yeah, like I kind of feel like, all right, I kind of understand this. I have perspective rather than like just being like a guy who's like co-hosting a kid show. I'm a dad who's co-hosting a kid show, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure that helps. Like, not a mom, but I paid for my college tuition myself, and like most of my money came from babysitting. Like I was a live-in nanny. I had a room in one of this family's home that actually I'm seeing their son who's 27 years old now. So that's aging
Wow.
me. He was 27 years old, and I started babysitting him when I was 10. But they had a room for me in their home. Like I used to like stay over. So I was a live-in nanny, and even though I had a family here, but in so many places, like just like the big sister of these kids. And I feel like I connect with kids. It's like the easiest thing in the world for me. And I know kids can be very intimidating, but like I was meant to be around kids. So I love it. But that's not to say that I think I could host a show. Like that's really difficult. That's a whole new thing. You're thinking about, throwing in the right packages. You're trying to like work with the kids, connect with them, but you're still on TV time and TV mode. So props to you for doing that. I imagine you like it. Like NESN Clubhouse looks like so much fun to do. Like you like doing that show?
I do. I enjoy it, and it's different now than it was when it first started. When it first started, for away games, they would be in studio with a group of kids, and they had a NESN host and a kid co-host, and then on home games, it was out on the street in front of Fenway Park, and so it was fixed. It was just those two locations, and they would go out and shoot some stories and things to put into the show, but over the past, now this is the third season, we actually go on location, which is kind of cool. So we've gone obviously to Fenway Park. We've gone to Polar Park in Worcester, they've been great. The Woo Sox have been awesome, but we've also done some other pretty cool things. Like we've gone down to the Cape Cod League, and we've done like shows from the Cape Cod League.
Cool.
We we've done like Manny Del Carmen, who used to pitch for the Red Sox, was an analyst at NESN. He owns a facility in Hyde Park, and we've done shows there. It's just it's really cool, and you get to really kind of help grow the game of baseball and softball. We've worked with Boston University's softball team quite a bit. They've done instructional videos for us that we air during the shows. The Yukon baseball team, the BC baseball team, they've all like show, hey, here's how you slide into a base, or here's how you pick up a ground ball, or here's a good home run celly, like all of those things that that are pretty cool. So yeah, I've enjoyed it. It's something that I never envisioned when I got into this business that I'd be doing. It's a completely
Right.
different animal, but I think it's cool to get out of your comfort zone sometimes.
Yeah.
And I think even though I mentioned I'm a dad and stuff, and I kind of I can relate to kids a lot better than I used to be able to. It's still out of my comfort zone. I think that's important to do because it gives you it's something new. It's fresh.
Totally. No, absolutely. And like I said, it looks like a fun show. I like to see the development of that. And like we talked about this weekend, you got to do a dance with the Savannah Bananas, which I think a lot of
Right.
people, the fans that they've had, would have loved to do that. Really quick, because I know we don't have that much time left, but that whole experience, like what was the team like and just the vibes being around them?
They're awesome. They're awesome. So as
Yeah.
part of the NESN Clubhouse episode, these guys do tricks, right? So like they keep like we keep track of home runs and stats and offensive stats in baseball. They keep track of tricks. So guys
Oh,
will
cool.
literally do like a backflip and catch a fly ball. Guys will put the ball between their legs and throw to first to get a guy out. So we had somebody from the Party Animals, which is the other team that takes part in Banana Ball, show us how to do a fielding trick, and then we had another guy who showed us how to do a bat trick. And all of these they're legit baseball players. They've played in college, like big programs. Some of them. Some of them have aspired to play professional baseball. Some of them have been in professional baseball. And so, but with all that said, they are awesome. They're great to work with. You ask it, hey, could you have a second? Oh yeah, it's awesome, right? They're part of like when the fans come in to the ballpark, an hour and a half before the game, which is what they do, in Major League Baseball. They open the gates 90 minutes before first pitch. But when they open the gates, the show starts. Like they're
Oh,
dancing,
cool.
they're doing interactive things with the crowd. They're doing all of these different things that obviously don't exist in the game of baseball, Major League Baseball, and professional baseball as we know it. So, but they're all great. They are all great to work with, and it's been fun to be a part of two of their shows now. So
Awesome.
yeah, so it's been really cool. I think we're about out of time. So I think we're about
Yeah,
out of time.
that's all right. Time
This
flies when
was
you're
good.
having fun.
I know. So we got you know got a couple of things that we didn't get to this week. Maybe it would be better with Jemai if he's in the mix next week. I don't even know our schedule, like from week to week sometimes. So I'm not sure. I'll be here next week. I know that. You?
I
Do you
think
know?
I'm supposed to be. You know what? I thought I was going to be driving home on Monday, but then when you were asking me how Canada was, I was like, oh, yeah, I can't drive home on Monday unless I leave later. Maybe I will. I don't know. Who cares? I'll be here next week. I'll be here next week.
Okay, good. So you'll be here, and we'll just have to see if Jemai is here or not. All right. So
Yeah.
that'll wrap things up. That was fun. I think it was good to talk about the flight experience and all those things. That people just don't see. And I think that's kind of
Yes.
the whole idea of this podcast is to give people an inside look at what we do behind the scenes. So, all right, well, that'll do it for Extra Time. Be sure to check us out on Facebook, Twitch, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Amazon Music. We're all available all on those platforms now, it was pretty cool. So, Soph, we'll catch you next week. All right.
All right, guys. See you next week. That was fun.